The following is a presentation of the Force Center podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the Force Center podcast feed, and this particular episode of the Force Center podcast feed is the Bad Batch Report.
Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, and somebody has to, and it's not going to be me, I'm sorry, but somebody has to put together a clip of all the different noises you make. It'll be a little reel for you. That's great.
Yes.
This time we got the exciting drums followed by the cackle of Gregor.
Oh, yes.
Did I identify that correctly? Was that the cackle of Gregor?
You did. I don't know if it was the most accurate Gregor laugh, but it definitely was an homage.
Look, animated shows have lots of cackles. That's one of the biggest things that you got in animation is cackles. And he's got a distinctive cackle, and I think you nailed it.
I love that cackle. I didn't, and I'll tell you, we'll talk about it when we get to Gregor. I don't think I realized how much I really loved it till it emerged in this episode.
Oh, yeah, it really added a lot of flavor and horror character and added to the upsetting vibes of this, I think, great episode. Anyway, let's get into it. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw. The person with the good cackle is Ken Napzok. This is the Bad Batch Report. We are discussing episode 14 of Bad Batch, War-Mantle, written by Damani Johnson, directed by Stuart Lee. Only 2 episodes left. Ken, do you feel like we are heating up toward the big finish?
We've been saying for a couple of weeks, the foot is going to be on the gas. And man, I think we're there. The engine is revving up.
Yes, the emotional trauma, foot on the gas is foot on the gas of emotional trauma. It's all happening. I wanted to ask you because I started pontificating about this last week. As we're heading toward a little bit of an end game, and we can get a sense of which threads might be resolved, which conflicts might be most fully addressed. Are you feeling like there is a season 2 waiting in the wings that hasn't been announced, but they're already working on?
Yes. Okay. Quick answer. Yes. I had this thought. We're gonna, we're jumping all over the plot board today, I guess already, and it's wonderful. I really don't think Hunter's gonna be back with the team this season.
Okay.
Meaning he'll be fine. He'll be rescued, but like in my head, maybe they spring him out in the final episode. I don't know. I'm bad at predictions, but just I had that feeling of like we're gonna keep going. This is gonna be a thing.
Yeah, I feel like that sort of this Camino thread, which we will talk about aplenty, is wrapping up. The end of the clones, the beginning of the Stormtroopers, so much what this is about,
right.
The ultimate conflict with Crosshair. That's really feeling like this is all where we're going, but that is leaving other threads about kind of Omega's identity and the Bad Batch's kind of ultimate choice of who they want to be in the galaxy, Hunter in particular. How does he choose to define soldier? Some of those bigger things feel like they are going to be left for staring off at the horizon and still addressing. I think some elements of them will absolutely be addressed, and I think this season will have a sense of closure. But even the dangle that we all got excited about of Omega's relationship to Boba Fett, and that's sort of its relevance to this era of Star Wars storytelling. Maybe that will still pop up this season, but it feels like great fodder for season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's kind of maybe the overall feeling I had from this episode. Again, individual plot points. Yeah, again, I could see this Hunter being sprung 5 minutes into next week, but just I had that sense of we got a little long game going, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, with that, let's get into this episode. What was your overall reaction? Did you love it, like it, struggle with it? Do you want it to be a Tuca doll so you can hug it? How did you feel about this?
Yes, Ed. Yes, I wrote, here we go. You're in the great game now. Yeah, I look at last week's episode, which you and I really loved and celebrated. I look at last week, and it's like, look, they saved some money. They bought some time. And now we have one of the most cinematic episodes of Star Wars TV ever. And that's why the so-called fillers are often just smaller, intimate, a little less budget. And so you can put all the money into something like this and whatever's coming in these last 2 episodes.
Yeah, just shockingly beautiful. Everything has been beautiful this season. The level of anime, or this episode or
Mm.
show of animation, but it's this was really next level, I thought.
Yeah, and you and I were joking off camera. I'm like, every week I say to myself, "Don't call the show beautiful." And you said something so great, Joseph. You're like, "Why? We can say it if we want, because it is, and it
Yeah,
is. What a gorgeous cinematic episode! The direction, the little details you could get out of so much stuff here. It's blowing my mind, and I'm going to celebrate that every time.
yeah. Look, I tell my wife I love her every day. I'm going to call Bad Batch beautiful every episode of our podcast. I got no problem with that because it really, really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just like the quality of light in the trees, just the quality of the I think the reason that it's just like it's not just like aesthetic, like cool, that's extra good, you know? It's the fact that it affects how I feel emotionally about this show. Like just the quality of that forest planet really brings out all the moods that you get from a forest, from like the dark horror of the beginning to the like, horrific irony of this kind of beautiful, peaceful mountain that's containing this utter horror. The fact that the actual forest is palpably beautiful makes all those emotions stronger for me.
You're exactly right. They are not just showing off. Maybe there's like 10% of look at this, right? Now that tree looks like a tree, as they should. It's not, it's so effective. There's little tiny moments, the use of light, all those things to create the picture, and you're able to just tell more of the story, even on facial expressions. When we all remember when the Clone Wars first popped up, they're still perfecting the art. I get it. Technology changes as it should. It should get better. But you couldn't tell all the stories with a eye close up of Ahsoka's eye, or her face, like, and now you can, and so it's just amazing tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, and there's this one shot where when Omega and Wrecker are playing that game on Gonki, and it's Omega's turn, and she kind of scooches forward in the chair, and it's just like I almost rewound just for that, for Omega scooching forward in a chair, because it was so shockingly realistic, and like
Yeah.
it's one of it makes me feel even more connected to Omega because she feels so real. It feels such a human little gesture.
Yeah, I want to dive into that for a second because I had put another moment I was going to kind of jokingly put in the action moment, but when they tell Wrecker and Omega to go back to the ship, they're going downhill, and Wrecker and Omega, but Wrecker is taking careful downhill kind of slippery slope steps, right? And
Especially for a big guy.
yeah, and I had the exact same reaction. And I rewound it. I rewound it to be number one that I kind of really see that, and two, yeah, it's there and it's subtle, but it's very realistic, and also it's about this character. It's about Wrecker. He's just like, "I gotta be careful," and the scooch moment. There's another great moment. I think when she finds the tracker, and another moment where she calls. I think she calls Wrecker up to the front. Right, they got to go, and she does a wave, and it's you could have done that 9-10 years ago. I get that. I'm not saying that, but it's such a little intimate detail, like you said. It draws me in more. You're exactly right.
Yeah, it makes me scooch forward.
Mm.
Yeah, so beyond the beauty and the emotion, achieved through the beauty, man, was this episode great
Yeah,
because it was horrible
yeah.
in terms of what was going on. Just that great sense of doom and dread from like just it starts with like an actual nightmare, right, of being chased through a dark forest, and it was really great to have an episode that swung back into a lot of action, but all of the action being this just endless, oppressive, inescapable horror of the Empire. So
Mm.
there's just that great mood and energy throughout. Been kind of saying like a part of the story of Bad Batch, and one of the things that I've been excited for since the announcement is that I was going to tell the story of this era,
Mm.
and we're really following that story, almost like the Republic becoming the Empire is a main character of this show, and this was such a huge part of that story, and it really got me. Honestly, is a fan who has lived with this for a long time and grew up with the original trilogy in particular. That this episode was kind of a celebration of the value of canon storytelling,
Mm.
in that it had like lots of fun details of like, oh, Gregor, he touches lots of different eras and shows. Commandos, they've got a great history. We'll talk about all those. But then kind of this big picture canon thing of like this realization sitting on my couch, and I'm about halfway through the episode, and I just kind of have to almost pinch myself and go, I'm watching the origin of the stormtroopers.
Yeah.
It's got a name. It's called War-Mantle. Like, this is
Mm.
just cool, and it has a value because you've lived with this world for so long, and this is a part of it that's really interesting to tell, of like the beginnings of the stormtroopers. I thought that was huge.
It was gigantic, and beyond just the happy Star Wars nerd giggle at TK units, right? And
Yeah.
I know that, but yeah, to actually see it, I jotted that down that note as well. We're going to dive into it, I'm sure, in a bit. But yeah, this is yeah, this is answers some questions that we've had since '83 and beyond, and '99 and all of that. Yeah,
Yeah, and lots of storytelling has kind of been able to nibble around the edges of this, but this is
right.
the full meal, and obviously we will get into all of those details, and cutting back and forth from Camino to this base that is so original trilogy. Empire is that great
Mhm.
mashup of all the eras, all these two eras meeting and transitioning, and then the other big picture thing for me that I really wanted to shout out at the top is, uh, I think there's been a lot in this whole show, but then particular moments, like the great moment with Hauser on Ryloth, but then with this with Gregor, really, really recontextualizing the clones as heroes.
Yeah,
Um, I say recontextualizing because obviously the individual characters are heroes throughout the Clone Wars. But
yeah.
then, when you're watching them be heroes in the Clone Wars and you're learning that they have individual personalities and they are luminous individuals within the Force, as Yoda says, like, there's always a little bit of this, like, but they're also pawns. And
Mm.
it's really great to see all these characters get to be fully, absolutely no doubt about it, heroes of like, no, wait a minute, we have ideology, we have perspective, we realize what's being asked of us, and we're saying bullshit. I'm not
Mhm.
doing that. It's really fist pumping to have lived with these characters for so long and get to see them not as pawns of a coming horror, but
Mm.
as heroes who can make a choice and say no.
Yeah, real big stuff, real great stuff. And there's some quotes of Gregor that I wrote down that are just simply, I don't even know where to put them into our conversation other than right here, of just like hearing him just be like, if you ask me, it's the ones who want to stay here are really defective. I love that line. I love it works as comedy, but works as a statement as well.
Yeah, no, a ton of great ones. So yeah, this we're soldiers of a republic that doesn't exist is like,
Mm.
that's heartbreaking. But
Yes, yes.
but really makes it clear of like, yeah, we fought for the republic, and the way the empire is behaving is not the republic that we work so hard to defend. Is really great peek into the characters.
Yeah, amazing stuff with Lama Su as well. Yeah, yeah. And the
Yeah.
Empire is not the Republic. It was a great sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into then the big themes, the ideas at stake in this episode. What grabbed you? What did you feel like was at stake or being discussed?
Yeah, I failed my theme homework assignment a little bit there because I just focused on one and I just focused on the action and everything. But there's a couple. I have the idea of the Empire always wins, but that has to do with your choices and what you can do to fight against that. And the idea of helping others, which is pretty big to Star Wars. But I really focused on this one of survival. The Kaminoans know they're about to be killed off. The Empire's canceled all of our contracts. That's pretty ominous. I know what that means. Gregor just having from the start of the episode the need to stay alive, and now the need to survive in this new time. And hey, we kind of know where he ends up, and he has some sort of survival for a while there, for a long while. But this is kind of the start of that, and this idea of the clones themselves, like you were talking about, of just the way Gregor's like, I've been trying to tell you, that's our replacements, and it's just this transition and how you can survive, adapt, and change, and a lot of it does have to do with your choices as you move forward into a new chapter, new generation.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think you knocked it out of the ballpark with your theme homework. Yeah, I think that's really what's at stake in this episode. I kind of broke it down into a couple different ideas. In the one I think that you're talking about a lot, I kept thinking about is fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
That almost all the characters we're seeing have been pushed into a corner by the Empire because it is everywhere and it is not allowing the options that the Republic used to. Like, I really like that the Kaminoan conversation is Nala Se being like, but we've got a great business and everybody knows it and has our business cards. Like,
Yeah.
great. If they don't want to do business anymore, what's the problem? We'll get more business.
Yeah.
Lama Su being, the problem isn't so much finding new business, it's that they're going to murder us.
That
They're
was
going to take our technology and kill us.
Yeah, I'm laughing only because it had a little bit of unintentional comedy. If dark gallows humor indeed. Yeah, I love that exchange. You're so right.
It really is like, yeah, should we find another job? No, our current boss is going to kill us. So you can't. Um, yeah, so obviously there's that. We must leave to ensure our survival, Lamasu says. That's, flight.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
all through this, people are choosing fight or flight in different ways. Hunter is really unsure about rescuing Gregor at first, right? He doesn't have intel. I think he is really worried about protecting the family around him, and this is a choice that Hunter keeps being presented with, keeps dragging his feet, and then kind of keeps doing the right thing of choosing to try to help other people.
Mhm.
Omega makes this argument that the choice should not be flight; it should be fight. Says Rex's friend is in trouble. That's more important than getting paid. It's a very Star Wars theme. The Echo moment is really big about
Mhm.
choosing fight over flight. When Hunter says, we've been going in blind without any reinforcements, and Echo saying, you did that on Skako Minor when you rescued me. I'd still be trapped in that place if you hadn't. If there's a chance that Trooper's being held against his will, we have to try to get him out.
Mm.
Which I want to come back to that in just a second. And then, the episode starts with flight, right? With Gregor literally saying, you're making me do something I don't believe in, and trying to run away. So there's just these constant fight or flight choices going on. And there's some noble moments where it's kind of fist pumping because our heroes choose to try to fight, but then they are overwhelmed and end up in flight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Well said. It's really interesting to once again, Omega gets to the core of things, and the Echo thing was, Echo thing was pretty powerful for me too. I just not just the personal connection, but it is that big theme that and he said I love breaking it down into fight or flight, and often that choice you talked a lot about with the Jedi about when is it time to fight. It kind of connects in a way to me.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
fighting for the greater good and fighting for people.
Yeah, and I really love that connection was made with Echo. Of course, there's been a lot in this whole series where he has the perspective of he fought more actively with the Jedi. He knows Rex, he knows the regs, he knows the kind of whole state of the galaxy in the battle. It seems a little bit more clear than the rest of the Bad Batch, who seem like they went on their missions and they did their thing. You know,
Yeah.
but this really personal viewpoint of like I had my control and my identity taken away from me, and the fact that he says if there's a chance that Trooper's being held against his will really gets these ideas of big Star Wars themes of choice that you were talking about.
Mhm.
But I wanted to put a pin in that to specifically ask you. I also had this sort of like bittersweet reaction of like what Echo is saying is so morally pure, and you want to agree and you want to have the Bad Batch try to do the right thing. But there's this kind of slight practical difference in that they don't have Anakin Skywalker. Just
That
like
was
on a practical level, I felt like the pain of that because
yeah.
Echo was making this argument of like, make the choice that you did for me when you were
Mm,
unflinching as
mhm.
soldiers.
Yeah.
But then from Hunter's perspective of just trying to keep everybody safe and alive, like it's kind of a big difference that they don't have, one of the most powerful Jedi ever to exist
Yeah.
fighting alongside them.
Would have been fun if records like we don't have one of those little saber guys. I'm right there with you because I've mentioned some stuff before where Hunter's going through a lot and he's still, I even there's a couple times in this episode where I'm like, have you chosen a side yet, Hunter? Come on, you're there, you're on the right side, keep going. But again, it's a journey, and it can be a long journey for some, shorter for others. So I've always kind of had this Hunter says things that are probably smart, safe, and responsible, particularly with Omega. I even liked in this episode. No, coming here, negotiable. You going back to the ship, not negotiable. I like moments like that. It's very realistic because it's adds not just nuance to the discourse, but adds just a realistic angle to the decisions we have to make in life. Sometimes they're hard. Sometimes they should be hard, and you have to overcome that, or pick the right time to fight, I guess.
Yeah, well, and I think that through line in this episode is so great of Hunter, listening to the arguments and wanting to do the right thing, but wanting to try to keep people as safe as possible. And a great sort of resolution of this fight or flight theme that
Mm.
Hunter chooses flight for everybody else. Gives the order of like, this is not one of those moments where we're going to do something really clever and get out of this. Like, we are overwhelmed. You will be captured too. Go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is powerful, and I think it shows like that Hunter is so desperately trying to keep the people he is immediately in charge of and that he loves safe. And every time he tries to rescue somebody else, it puts them in danger, and he seems like he kind of morally knows that's right. But this makes it so clear that he is absolutely willing to risk himself.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I just think is it makes me feel for poor Hunter of like, yeah, hey, if I was all alone, I'd probably take a lot of risks.
Yeah.
It's trying to keep everybody else safe that I'm so concerned about.
Yeah. 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 And, like, I've really enjoyed. I'm really enjoying. I'm teasing the Hunter or the Hunter storyline of make a choice. It's been a slow burn, but it's built to this, and yeah, now it's literally in his face in the form of Crosshair.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a legitimate thing to discuss, and I think some fan discussion or criticism is kind of centered on a lot of this season is Hunter, refusing the call.
Yeah.
We've highlighted that a lot of like how Hunter's just like, well, we just got to figure out how to keep our heads down, and the one thing I'm committed to is Omega's part of the squad, and we're gonna raise her and keep her safe. But then everywhere he goes, he gets pulled into like. Working for the rebels, like
Mm-hmm.
that is the call, and he still is refusing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. How often in life it's the old God sent you a boat, a raft, inner tube, and he didn't take any of them, Hunter.
I'm waiting for a plane. That's my thing. Yeah. The other big theme for me, which is also just kind of the plot, but just this feeling of the suffocation of the Empire, of just
Yes.
how much the Empire is everywhere. The omnipresence of the Empire is what's causing everyone to have to respond in this fight or flight way. But I just thought this episode did a great job of making you feel it, right? Because every character is struggling to stay out of the reach of the Empire. Gregor is the catalyst. Then we're watching the B plot with the Kaminoans trying to survive the Empire. I love that Rex, even in his message, is like, I'm being chased right now by the Empire, so I don't even have a time to finish this holo call.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course all of our heroes throughout the main episode, and even just those opening shots of that beautiful dark nightmare forest with the close up of the massives.
Yes.
It's the literal and metaphorical beast of the Empire chomping at a character's heels, and that's the whole thing throughout the episode, right? And then they make it really concrete with just getting this really, really straightforward canon of these recruits come from all over the galaxy. They swear loyalty to the Empire. They're not as skilled, but there's an endless supply of them, says Gregor.
Yeah. God, man, I love when you say something that gets me excited, friend. Years, and I just love the way you painted this wonderful picture of this episode. Starts with running. It's a great sequence. I'm going to talk about it later, I'm sure. But like literally, the Empire, the new Empire, the one that's forming, biting at the heels, and it leads to one of my. I don't know why it shook me more than it just shook me. The idea of Lama Su's potentially last moments. We'll discuss that in the canon and lore stuff, but. Do that line of Admiral Rampart, what are you doing here? And Rampart's like, I'm disappointed, and like, and Lama Su just kind of, even though Lama Su knows the score, Lama Su just kind of giving that answer of like, I've done everything I've served you, I held up my end of the bargain, and just the idea of like. That don't work. The Empire don't care. It's not the Republic. The Empire always wins in the situation. You're about to be killed. And just there was something real ominous about that. And it was the Empire coming and they will catch you, which is what we want to fight against, and which is what Star Wars is going to be dealing with here for the next 19 years or so in storytelling. But you know what I mean? Like, so from that moment of the biting of the heels to the Empire's like, no, we're here. You failed. We're going to kill you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really powerful because, following this B plot of the Kaminoans, it's not like I think their story is one where like they made a deal with the devil out of greed. That's very much Lucas's perspective of so much of the prequel era is the dangers of greed, right? And
Hmm.
Lamasu even has that great line of like, "We empowered them."
Yeah.
Uh, I've got it written down somewhere. I'll find it, but you know what I mean. But watching this story, it's not like Lama Su is like, and now we're going to take over the empire, overthrow the empire. Just like, we're trying to get new samples for you so you will continue your business. Like, Lama Su
Hmm.
isn't actually doing anything from the empire's perspective
Yeah.
that is horrific. It's just that the empire is like, no, we don't want anyone else to have any power, and
Yeah.
you got to go.
It strikes a similar chord to Lando and on Bespin and Empire, right? His deal's getting worse all the time. Pray, don't alter the deal. All those wonderful classic lines, but it's like the house is going to win here, and it's about trying to topple the house, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like this idea of the empire just sort of suffocating and chasing down everything, it gets repeated again and again.
Mhm.
The actual amount of these early stormtroopers and clone commandos who are not as skilled. We get to actually see it in action. They are not as skilled, but they are everywhere, and there's too many of them, and that extends to all those V-wings, chasing down
Mhm.
the Marauder. Again, we get that sense that. Yeah, absolutely. Tech in Wrecker are more skilled, but there's just too many of them. There's this swarm quality of the V-wings, right? That they're not a threat by themselves, but there's just so many of them. They're everywhere. And then even to me, just like the size of the installation, that this idea of like, well, it's not supposed to be anything on this planet, allegedly. And then there's this huge, huge, uh, base, this installation inside a mountain, which is also an imposing, immovable object.
Yeah.
Um, and then on top of all of that, I really felt like they just like it's everywhere. You can't get away from it. Is even in the music cues. I
Oh.
love that Kevin Kiner doesn't just go straight for the Imperial March of Empire Strikes Back. These
Mhm.
are all these cues from Star Wars: A New Hope, right?
Yeah.
Of just that the little kind of cues that feel like they eventually became the backbone of what the Imperial March exploded into in Empire.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I expected to hear like they split up. They're in levels 4 and 5 now. Yeah. It was wonderful, wonderful because it totally evoked the feeling trapped and lost inside the Death Star, inside the inner workings of the Empire. It worked on that level for me.
Yeah, yeah. So I just thought that was
Hmm.
a really great theme that is like it's explicitly the plot, but then you were made to feel it in lots of different visual and oral ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Any other thoughts on the themes of this episode before we dive into kind of how they reflect bigger Star Wars ideas?
No, let's cannonball on into the deep end then.
Yeah. So what do you got there?
I just again the overall this idea of the empire. I keep saying the empire always wins because I'm not rooting for them. It's just there's hope at the end of this tunnel. But how this all does boil down into the choices you need to make in the bigger Star Wars picture, and how I always keep going that this show and of the many things it's doing. I really do love how it's laying the groundwork for rebellion, and those pieces are going to have to connect to people like Infus Nest. They're going to have to connect even more to Saw Gerrera and Galen Erso and all the stuff that we know and all the things we're yet to learn. I always go to the show connecting to that bigger perspective of the choice to fight. Like you said, fight or flight's great. How do you survive? And then in this new era, you change, adapt, and grow, and as you find your own identity. It's all this big stew of that picture of the rebellion for me that I continue to really just love in this show.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think I was processing some of the same things. You were processing it from a hopeful perspective of there are heroes who are fighting back.
It's rare
um,
for me to go hopeful, so
no, it's great. I'm thrilled with it. I think I was affected by just that big Star Wars theme of change and facing the unknown.
Mhm.
That change is going to come. Sometimes it's just natural, the natural change of life, of getting older or taking the next step on your adventure or that kind of thing. But then there's also like the Jedi philosophy of there's some things out of your immediate control
Mhm.
as an individual. And it's like just I felt that huge amount of change in facing the unknown from Hunter really being like, we don't have intel. Like maybe do this if I had any clue what was going on, but like they just can't know because it's new, right? And then just everything they're facing from the changing codes to troopers that they don't recognize to, Camino is like, no, everything is changing now. It's like this brick wall of sudden change, and our characters, even though they're aware of it, still kind of can't seem to fully accept it.
Yeah, not quite there. Sometimes you're going to be thrown into a cell and asked to really decide.
Yeah. And tech has a lot of evidence that maybe the normal codes won't work, but he's just kind of
Yeah.
like not seeing or accepting
Okay.
change. Like, well, I put the code in.
Yeah,
And Gregor's like, you're still not getting it, dude.
yeah. There's some great reads by D. Bradley Baker on Gregor. Just like idiot, like you said, like, are you not listening? Are you not connecting to the themes of the story in front of us?
Yeah. I think the other big Star Wars theme for me is one that you mentioned, and I think it is in some ways the kind of the real heart of this episode amidst the horror, is that idea that helping others is the right choice, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you can finesse what is strategically the best way to do it, but this idea that you can't know that somebody is in horror, and not try to help them. And Omega kind of constantly having that perspective and saying, well, that's more important than money, right? And then with the argument from Echo of like, we have to try, and maybe they were wrong. Maybe they were right that absolutely someone needs to be helped, but maybe Hunter was right but we needed to approach it in a different way. And I like that it lends itself to that question of practicality while still really presenting this strong, consistent Star Wars morality that, of course, we help others. Of course, that's more important than money.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Yeah. Helping others is, Anakin will tell you, his mom says, pretty important.
Yes. Any other big themes you wanted to look at?
No, and I know sometimes I might repeat some of these connection motifs, but I just think that this show is really a long form essay on this transition and how we get from here to the rebellion. It really and even to Star Wars Rebels, which is more even, the actual building blocks are there, and we're putting them all together, sometimes literally with the cells. This is the emotional beginning of that. This is how it's happening. Gregor just kind of looking around and going, yeah, I was instructor here. I got out, and the ones that stayed are defective. That's the choices everyone's going to have to start making.
Yeah, and that line about, they swear loyalty to the Empire, and you get that picture of stormtroopers that they are, they're drinking the Palpatine Kool-Aid. They're drinking they're taking in the propaganda of, this great big story of, it's not just the Anakin or the Jedi who gave in to fear. It is the Republic, right? That Palpatine successfully created this other to fear of the Separatists, convinced everybody, enough people in the galaxy that the only way to be safe is to be adversarial and to be strong and violent and push back. And you can just, there's nothing utterly explicit in this episode, but for me, I can just feel that of like, why would recruits across the galaxy say yeah to this, to joining this, and to really believing in this? And that one stormtrooper we get to hear call Gregor a traitor. Like, for me, it all flows from that idea of propaganda of like, do you want to keep having a safe and secure society? Well, then suit up. Here's a blaster. Always see everything and everyone as a threat, and see yourself as this great big defender from the threat.
Here's a big, sweet, sugary glass of wild berry flavored sheaf. Just drink it. Drink that Kool-Aid down.
Drink that Kool-Aid. Drink that Sheev Kool-Aid. Yep, which Gregor was having none of. And with Sheev Kool-Aid, I know I need a break. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to discuss a ton of great action, comedy, and a lot of canon. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hey, Force Center friends, make sure you're keeping up to date on all the great content from Jennifer Landa. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, you whippersnappers, Force Center's own Jennifer Landa continues to bring you fun, informative, and insightful laughs and moments.
Also, Jennifer brings her experience and perspective as a Star Wars-loving mother to her DIY projects, blogs, and more, so be sure to head on over to jennylanda.com, that's JENILANDA.com, for articles like how to make your own Darth Maul sneakers or 10 unique Star Wars baby gift ideas.
Follow Jen on Twitter and Instagram at Jennifer Landa and on TikTok as Jennifer Landa 1138.
And we are back to continue our discussion of episode 14 of the Bad Batch, War-Mantle. Let's talk action. Ken, there's a lot of action in this episode. What were some of the moments that spoke to you?
Man, where do I begin? Just from the beginning, the opening chase on Dara, I mean, I'll say there was a couple repeated beats. I mean, this is a super nitpick. It's not at all, but just I was like, okay, I watched it the second time. I was like, this is longer than I thought, but it worked. It was so effective, and the tension built, and all that ends in the capture of Gregor. But that just was a wonderful sequence, full of action, full of theme, like you brought up and we talked about. And again, beauty, just a beautiful, tense chase to start the episode.
Yeah, no, I kind of wrote this down in a jokey way, but I was legitimately emotionally affected by it in that whole chase. Like everything about it is great. The close-ups of the massives, terrifying. But when Gregor gets stunned in the butt, that was, I wrote it down in a jokey way because I couldn't help myself. But my actual emotional reaction was I've never seen that, like a glancing blow from the stun bolt. So that was like kind of felt fresh.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been seen before, but I'm not remembering in the moment. But it added to that nightmare quality. That's literally a nightmare of like I am running through the dark forest from something that is going to devour me, and now I can't run fast anymore.
Yeah,
it was horrifying.
Yeah, no, it all works. And when I said there was repeated beats, just a couple times it felt like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where I would think it's Eric Idle that's charging the castle, maybe Cleese, and they keep showing him running, and they cut to him at the front door, which is hilarious. So I just a couple times I kept going back to the animals, the massives, and I was like, okay, but all that ends so well, and that I that limp when he's just pulling away.
Right.
And stunned. I had the thought of like, is that possible? I mean, is it just because he's stronger? Is it a bad shot? Maybe that's some of the answer too, or just the whole tension of it. It was something new, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, maybe better armor. Who knows? But yeah, that whole opening sequence was great. But the lower leg stun, man, amazing. I really liked a ton of the action once they get into the base, obviously. But one beat I in particular liked is Gregor throat punching a stormtrooper.
Yes.
It's a really quick shot because they throw the smoke grenade, and Hunter is choking the clone commando to knock him out without killing him. And you haven't learned yet that Gregor is the instructor who hasn't taught them everything. But then when I watch it the second time, it's like, that's a move he didn't teach them. It's like, one thing you have to watch for in this armor is your neck is actually vulnerable. And he used that.
Love that. I love him. Yeah, I don't train him everything. I'm not dumb. Come on.
Yeah, Gregor was a good comedy machine. What were some other moments for you?
I love there's a little moment of a stun grenade shocking multiple troopers. Just liked it. Hey, what are you gonna? It's too violent. And then also there's one little moment where like Hunter ducks to like the side, and a stormtrooper runs by, and then Hunter like stuns him.
And I think that's actually tech.
Is that tech? Oh, tech. I apologize. I'm just giving goggles. I apologize. Hilarious. And another tech humor moment. I thought I really, it too had some Monty Python type of ding, 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 stun gun. We got you.
It was hilarious of that. Yeah, just the pulling over on the side and like, oh, you ran right in front of me. Well, this is what you get then.
Right.
A general action question. How did you feel about them continuing to just be like their policy is stun?
It's so funny. I saw a rather upset comment about it on our friend Alex Damon's Instagram page, where someone was very complimentary of the episode, but they were like, I'm just tired of them stunning. Just kill. And it made me like it more. I'm not, no disrespect to that person's opinion, but I heard their opinion and I went, no, I think I like it. They are still at the time. And again, they're shooting stormtroopers, but there's this idea of fighting brothers and understanding who might be under that mask and what they might be going through with the chip and whatnot. And will that play going forward? Do they even have that conversation? Do we see it on screen? I don't know. I don't think, but like hey, we might need to up the game. Like, I don't know. So I love that it was still there. It meant something to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes to a little bit of this contextualization of, the stormtroopers and in the clone commandos who are either still being impacted by the chip or are, making a not great choice out of their individual ability to choose. They're just firing away, unquestioning. And that the Bad Batch is still kind of doing things their way of stun them just in case. I really enjoyed it. I think it really has some power. And I think, there is something to be said for, well, we have known that this is a setting that some blasters have since the first film.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see heroes just choose to use it.
Yeah. I really like it.
And the sound effects, cool.
Sound effects cool. And look, I think that they might have to change the setting. They might. It's going to be part of this. People are dying. The V-wings. I mean, there's death. It's.
Oh yeah.
But it's not just. And going back to that comment, I don't mean to call out this random fan of Star Wars Explained, but like, I get it's a kid's show. It's not because it's a kid's show. It's a clear thematic choice for this squad, and it has its purpose.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's going to serve them well for a while here. In this episode, one of my favorite action moments was when they didn't have that option.
Yeah,
when they're waiting for pickup, and that clone commando is on him, and they throw him into the opening, and he gets shot by his own dumb troopers, and then my favorite thing, Ken, falls from a high place with a scream.
Yeah, Have we delved deep into why you like that? I love that you love it because it's fun and it's a weird Star Wars tradition too. But I love that
yeah, it's a Star Wars tradition.
Yeah, I see it. I go, he's making it out.
Yeah, it's the heart of adventure serial, right? Like it's cool to have a sword fight. It's way cooler to have it on the top of the castle. It's cool for Indiana Jones to be punching some dudes. It's way cooler on a rope bridge over a chasm. It's just this literalization of heighten the stakes that is such a tradition of adventure serials. And I mean, I glommed onto it when I was a kid. Like I remember a couple of times that my family moved around a lot, and I don't know why I remember this one particular time where we were looking at different places we were going to live, and my mom let me bring my Stormtrooper action figure, and I kept trying to vote on where we would live based on if there were high places where I could play. Like I remember, like there was one that had a fireplace that had a high mantle. I was like, we gotta get this one because my Stormtrooper can fall from here.
There you go. I love it.
So it's buried deep. My love of characters getting hit by something and then falling from a high place.
Yeah.
But it was just cool. A cool move. Where also it showed that like, we're choosing stun blast first, but we're also trying to survive, like you said, with the V-wings, and also like the clone commandos are a bigger problem. So, and this guy's on us, and he's got to be dealt with. So just shove him out there.
Yeah. I like. Yeah.
What are some other action moments from you?
Yeah, I call it another Temple of Doom memory, and I know that this is used elsewhere, Fugitive as well. So, but I am an Indiana Jones fan, so I always go to Indiana Jones. But we talked about the kart race last week. Now we got the running out of the reactor port and just standing on that tiny ledge and just nothing but a rope bridge and alligators down below there. I really just enjoyed that. I had a good laugh. Whether it got super intentional or not, I don't know. It just makes me think of it, and it's just it's a fun. Serial adventure. One problem leads to another, and I love that.
Yeah, nowhere to go pipe is great.
Yes,
always great. Jumping back to slightly earlier, I liked the moment too where they were taking down the stormtroopers left and right, and that kind of caused the like. I thought you said you trained them, which was a funny line.
Yeah,
but then they are still being led by the clone commandos. That's the War-Mantle project, right? In that scene where the clone commando is smarter and skips over the elevator and actually does manage to shoot up poor Gregor, And then they have the amount of times they need to stun him
Yes.
to take him down really upped the terror of like, not only are we being overwhelmed by these crappy stormtroopers, they're still a threat because there are so many of them.
Yeah.
But then the clone commandos are smarter and faster and better and harder to take down. It really upped the stakes for me.
Yeah. Everything about it. Raising the stakes, indeed. Like a good improv.
Yes, exactly. Any other action moments for you? Did you like Wrecker being in Omega's bedroom? Shooting people down?
That's my next thing. Wrecker the Tail Gunner. That's the thing I love. I love me some old style video game gunner action. And there was also something about it this time where because when I do that in video games, I get really antsy, almost like I go into a weird convulsion because I get so like I'm really angry when I can't hit the targets. Body starts reacting physically. I start just like, oh, get let and Wrecker at one point he was kind of leaning and had the hand on the trigger and the other hand was kind of like holding on to like the gun itself in a way. And I just felt the frustration of almost just you couldn't quite get all the V-wings you needed as your friends being captured down below. And so beyond just me liking Wrecker as a gunner, it was a powerful sequence for me.
Yeah, I thought it was so great, the whole sequence, the fact that they had to pull away and that, yeah, you got the sense that, Tech is a great pilot. Wrecker is an expert shot, is a tail gunner, and he's taken down V-wing after V-wing, but it's not enough because there are too many. Just great action sequence because it felt like our heroes are truly trapped. It doesn't matter how awesome they are. They can't get out of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All leading to Hunter's fall, which I feel guilty, but I wrote it down as a favorite action moment.
I did too, in all caps. That's a great sequence. So close.
So close. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a cool moment of like, yeah, they'll dip down and I'll just fly into the hole. Whoops, no. And then did you keep thinking that, he's going to catch himself at some point?
I thought this was Homer Simpson falling down like Snake Canyon or whatever, like now the ambulance. I thought they played it very well, that it went all the way down to the bottom, and broke his fall enough where I guess he could survive. And the gear's tough. But yeah, from the jump, the leap, grabs the stairs, the knife is out, everything. Yeah, it worked really well. That's why, sorry, Hunter, it was a great sequence.
It was a great sequence because I truly felt the emotional pain. And it was awesome. Any other action moments before we move on?
I'm going to put this in action. You might want to discuss it elsewhere. So I apologize if I'm stepping on the lead. I finally remembered to put on the subtitles. So nice. I call this moment Gonky honking. The power droid finds his purpose before Gonky sputtering. And
sorry, I was drinking water. That was so good. That was so good. Yeah. No, we can chat about it. I had put it in canon of like a power droid being used for power.
Yes. But with everything going on with him and the defective and every week, Omega's trying to fix him and everything. Gonky honking is one of my favorite moments.
Oh, yeah. So good. And did you feel for poor Gonky when he got lit up?
Absolutely. I mean, come on. This guy can't buy a break. And he's a hero.
Gonky is a hero, and Omega's going to fix him again. He's going to be okay. Gonky's going to be okay.
Gonna be okay.
All right. Did you have some favorite moments of comedy, whimsy, weirdness?
Oh, there's definitely some comedy, whimsy, weirdness. The little tiny whimsy, Omega mimicking the knife spin in the beginning. I thought that was really good.
Beautiful whimsy, but also just like this show has done a really great job of keeping that thread of Omega where she is observant and repeats behavior, often Hunter's, really alive. And I think all those little moments add up to paying off so much in this episode where she really doesn't want to leave Hunter behind, right? Mm-hmm. There's this connection between the two of them.
Love those little moments, indeed.
Yeah, absolutely great. That was one I had written down. I also liked, you said there was nothing on this planet, Wrecker says, and Tech says that data appears to be inaccurate. Like that Tech in that moment is being, a good scientist and saying, look, sometimes Wikipedia has some bad editing on it. What are you going to do?
As a follow-up, it's not, I don't think it's related, but there's a line that Tech has that I wrote down that says, not one I've ever heard of, which is just real Tech, like, it's almost Jocasta new, like, it's not in the records, not in the archives. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and I think there is this Tech really relies on knowledge and facts and recorded data. And, this episode, he kind of goes back and forth between like, oh, wow, there's data that I don't have a handle on, and I wanna trying to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
What are some other moments for you?
I think we should talk about the Wreckers. They have a point bit. It worked really well for me in the sense of the first line was delivered so wonderfully awkward. It was such a spotlight on the, well, hey, Echo's got a point. I was like, uh-oh. And it worked. And it's type of joke for me that like first one, that's funny. Second one, I get it. Third one, you're sticking with it. And that's the best one. So I love it.
It's the best one, and it feels honest. It's not
Mhm.
just like a bit. It is that Wrecker's not a deep thinker. He is emotional,
Yep.
intuitive, and a reactor. And it's nice that we can laugh at it and also agree with him. Of like, yeah, Wrecker, they all have good points,
Yeah.
which is what makes choices so hard.
Yep. Yep. It's like me and Grace choosing what ghost show to watch on Friday night. They're all good choices, and we all have a good option. We got to choose the one.
Yep, I understand.
Yeah.
Choices are hard. I really like this Omega and Wrecker moment of cutting back from the horror and the drama going on in the installation there, and Omega and Wrecker playing a game, and again keeping up that thread that now we know like Omega's a master strategist, and
Mhm.
she's gonna beat Wrecker.
Yeah.
She says it's still your turn. He's like, I know, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, they're my favorite. One of my favorite duos in Star Wars now. It's the softer side version of Arya and the Hound to me. Just
Oh yeah.
great sitcom waiting. The Wrecker and Omega show taped for a live studio audience.
Yeah, I'd be happy to just watch Wrecker process Omega beating him at various games. Another moment for me is Gregor had a bunch of great moments, but I like this early one when he's called a traitor by the early stormtrooper. He says, "That's Captain Traitor."
Yes. Well, the final moment is the next line of insubordinate plebe. That you just named a great rock band or created a T-shirt right there. I love that sequence. I really love Gregor. I'm gonna go. I actually was thinking I might revisit some Rebels episodes this weekend. I didn't realize again that how much I love Gregor.
Yeah, no, he's great and has a lot of great connections. We'll chat about him in a moment here and getting into canon. Just two other moments for me. There's this one moment where they open the elevator door and they stun two stormtroopers. The stormtroopers have a very funny scream. Ah! That's like it's partially shocked and then they're stunned in the middle of being shocked.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then the last moment for me, which is again another moment where just like the details is what is making the show really rich, and spending this amount of time with these characters is when Omega is so concerned, and she's pacing with Lula the Tuca doll, that she's had that
Yeah.
great relationship back and forth with her and Wrecker having a Tuca doll and
Mhm.
putting it in the little home in the gun turret that they made for Omega, and it's just this connection between them that
Yeah.
is really touching.
Yeah, that was great. Omega, yeah, just Omega's just a win all around as a character, and really, we're coming out of a Grogu era, and that's a character that just won the hearts of the world. And Omega, when you're up against Grogu, it's a hard fight as a character there, but she's just been so good and so real. And it's those little moments that yes, maybe 10 years ago you could have done it on a show, but it just feels different now in an animated show.
Yeah, and it's just so much emotional canon, as you have often said, Ken, of like that's this connection. She's so proud of this nice little home, and this is one of those times, like she told Hera, like this is my bedroom when we're not being chased and shot at.
Right.
And Lula's out of place, and in her arms trying to comfort her. All right, let's move on to canon, lore, connections to other stories, because there's a lot. Darrow is a new planet, new beautiful planet on the outer rim. So that's a new canon. And then Gregor, I did a little bit of a review to make sure that my memories are correct, that he did indeed originally appear with amnesia in the D Squad Meber Gascon arc, where he is working for one of the most absurdly named Star Wars characters of Mr. Borkus.
Yeah, that's right.
The Sullustan who has captured him. And I just thought that was great, because I think, that's probably still to this day, maybe not fans' favorite arc. George Lucas says it's his favorite arc, but that's probably one of those arcs back in the day, especially as it came out weekly, where people are like, "What are we doing?"
You're looking at one of those guys.
Did the Clone Wars almost shake you with
Yeah.
all those straight episodes of D Squad?
Yeah, and that's later in the run, right? This is
Oh
that's
yeah,
season
season
1.
5.
Yeah, it's late in the run, and even so, I'm a fan of the show, and I just remember, you know, watching on Cartoon Network or wherever it was. Yeah, Cartoon Network, right? And turning off my DVR, just go into the living room, and be like, "Give me a whiskey." Like, what am I doing? This frog guy on there, but I can't wait for you and I to revisit on Clone Wars because yeah, I had a passing memory around the time of Rebels that yeah, Gregor was okay, the guy, I remember that. I don't remember it, but I remember it, and so to have it all full circle and have him mention I was blown up once and that didn't work, and pull from that story, it just makes emotional canon, but even just the actual canon, it fit together real well.
Yeah, and I think just in our ongoing discussion of which episodes feel frustrating to us maybe in the moment because they feel episodic. They feel like just kind of a standalone adventure, not telling the main story that we're tuning in for.
Mhm.
That those episodes build characters, they build ideas that then have, greater strength. And I would say this is kind of a big canon episode that Gregor is the clone by which we hear some of these big ideas about this transition. Like, and
Mhm.
again, they were in canon floating around, but this is so on the nose, and Gregor, the guy who had amnesia with Mr. Borkus, who people probably were like, ugh, at some point about that episode, some fans, not all.
Mhm.
And here he is being real important.
Yeah, really important. Absolutely.
Uh, Yeah, and then for people who are not following along all the time, he is one of the other clones that lives with Rex when Rex meets up with the rebels in Rebels, and he goes on to help free Lothal from the Empire.
Yeah, and has a pretty touching final scene there.
He does, and I think it all tracks together well. Any other Gregor thoughts you wanted to share?
No, I love the connection. I love the connection to the commandos themselves, and anytime they pop up, and he was one, so he wore kind of that gear, and then it all tracks, it all connects, and it's not just a nostalgia pop. It is let's actually see what we can do with the story, and I love the work, love the reveal, because I there's no way I'm ever going to remember serial numbers, right? I don't. I just, and so when that's why I really love that laugh when he first makes a laugh. I'm like, oh wait, oh yeah, well done, and it just that worked for me.
Yeah, and I think for me, I always really liked that choice in Rebels because I was so excited to see Rex, and then Wolf made some amount of sense because he's a really cool, distinctive clone that a lot of people like, and then Gregor. I think because he isn't a cool name like Hound or
Yeah, yeah.
or Fist Power or what he doesn't have a badass or a quirky name. It's like
He's not a He-Man character.
yeah, like how did he pick his name? Like, yeah, my name's Gregor.
Eh,
You're, like hanging out you with your friends who are like, Scar and Venom, and like, I'm Philip.
yeah,
Okay, cool. Your
yeah.
choice. So I think his name stuck with me.
Mhm.
So I always remembered it. I was excited when he showed up. I'm like, ooh, interesting. The amnesia clone. How did he end up here? So I like this connective tissue too of like he's got this relationship with Rex, and this is
Mhm.
the next chapter of his story, building to where we see him in Rebels is really cool.
Yeah. Indeed.
The Clone Commandos. I know so many people I'm sure, were very excited to spend some quality time with that Clone Commando armor. I did a little review of that as well. Here it is from Wikipedia about the history of them. Clone Commandos were first mentioned in Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, indirectly mentioned during the Battle of Geonosis. The concept of Clone Commandos was introduced within the Star Wars Expanded Universe novel, The Cestus Deception, and then there were many other novels, and the characters were later heavily featured in the game Star Wars Republic Commando. Clone Commandos were introduced into modern Star Wars canon through the Star Wars The Clone Wars episode, Witches of the Mist. They pop up in a couple other Clone Wars episodes, and they're in Battlefront 2 as well. So lots of different ways to approach them. but I feel like I hear a lot of people really loving the Republic Commando, the Clone Commando, because they read those books or they played those video games and those kind of critical years where I think people really made a strong attachment
Yeah.
to these commandos.
Very popular. Very popular.
Yeah. So what's your connection to them? What's your emotional reaction to seeing them?
It's a little less than those folks you described, but I just love seeing them. The glowy the glow up eyes, as I'd call them there, I guess, is for some reason is not my favorite. But I also like the look and the bulk and it makes sense. And this story took that idea and just hey, we put them at the front of stormtroopers. They're training these new stormtroopers, and I like how that kind of fit into it. But it's just one of those fun things where you just point at the screen and you go, hey, those things, and that works too.
Yeah, and I didn't play those video games. That main video game, I didn't read those
Yeah.
books, so I didn't have as strong of a connection. I've come to really like their design. I think when I first saw it, I think it felt a little bit um, like it's one of those Star Wars designs that fits in Star Wars, but then it also looks like lots of other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looks a little bit like a Space Marine from many other things.
Yes.
But I've come to like them partially just because of my own experience of getting to play them in Battlefront 2, and that builds a bond. You connect with them,
Yep.
and I really love them in this episode because that armor. Like I've come around to the armor in general, or it's just one of those things. Like, maybe it's not my favorite, but it's not something I'm going to get upset about and write Twitter threads. I don't need everything to be my personal favorite, and I can respect that it is for some people. But I really love them in this episode because I felt like the literal weight of that armor and that look and that heightened ability, right? Especially in contrast to these just poorly trained stormtroopers who are just like, their power is they're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
But the clone commandos are the real threat.
Yeah, and it just made me think too of if there's suddenly a Star Wars story where a clone commando survives the entire time and is there during the Galactic Civil War, it would make sense and be an interesting kind of wrinkle to a story that we haven't heard yet.
Yeah, I love that. And then of course, just the big picture canon. I want to mention War-Mantle. This is the term that we heard when Rampart was explaining the idea of this program, that they would pair conscripted people from throughout the galaxy with a clone commando, and he shouted out the title, War-Mantle, which is, of course, one of the program files Jyn and Cassian discover on Scarif. Wanted to mention that because I think that's real cool, because when Rogue One came out, everybody was like, ooh, what are all these programs? And it's really fun to see one. And not just like a random one, like the invention of the Stormtrooper program. Yeah, really cool.
Big.
Yeah. So, how did you feel about this evolution of Stormtrooper armor? What did you think of that? Of the you mentioned the TK troopers. They're almost there, but not quite the classic original trilogy Stormtroopers we know.
Yeah, they're like little muffin top heads. They're a little different, right? It's a little different, but the masks are getting there. I do like that. Look, I'm a kid that was on the playground going, well, the Return of the Jedi Stormtroopers have a little bit more black outline on their Under Armour. And like, I was that kid, all right? Whether or not I knew everything or was making up facts, didn't matter. So I do love studying this and the different variations of the clone armor, and now getting back to this really unified point. And of course, now conscripted troops in there. I like where we're at, because we're not too far. I don't know, the time jumps are somewhat unclear, and we're all sometimes can get obsessed with time, the actual time in Star Wars. We're not too far after Revenge of the Sith, right? We're not too far after Order 66, and the fact that we're really seeing the first weeks, months of that transition excites me, and just on the uniform, on the armor level. And so I thought it was a fun to call it out. And fun to just see it. Like I said, this is Star Wars history we're seeing.
Yeah. I like that they were kind of stormtroopers with mullet helmets, maybe. Instead of 70s hair, they kind of have a 70s helmet with the longer sort of fins on the side, I guess. They had a little bit of that vibe. And Star Wars Rebels, we got a lot of those guys. A lot of them were on like speeders or like early biker scouts or something, or just general troops. So they had the helmet, looked like almost Mimban mud troopers, and then they had but the mask came down. It was just kind of weird combos of all of those things. Yeah, and not quite there in the way that we recognize it, but you get that sense that it will be very soon. Yeah. A couple other things here. I liked the consistency in Star Wars technology that main reactors do have external exhaust ports.
Yes. Yes.
And you can shoot things into them and you can escape out of them. Lots of options with external exhaust ports.
Yeah. Love that.
Obviously, the V-wings and seeing the Republic gunships being the ships of terror is hard and successful.
Yeah.
We talked about Gonki being used for actual power. Last big thing I wanted to talk about is the tragedy of Kamino.
Mhm.
Let's get into it, Ken. Was that the end of Lama Su?
Look, you and I are in the same boat. We were listening and waiting for the laser blasts. We didn't necessarily hear them. So, hey, it's the old Game of Thrones model. If you don't see their death, good chance they're alive. But there was nothing about this episode that gives me confidence. Mas Ameda being shot in the side of the head. I had more confidence.
Orn Frita, yeah.
Excuse me, Orn Frita. Mas Ameda, he's lucky if that happens to him. Orn Frita getting shot in the side of the head is more faith in his survival at that moment than this moment, which had no laser blast and door closing. It just nothing about the episode gave me hope.
Yeah, no, I almost felt like it was maybe there is something more. Maybe there is like they're gonna torture Lama Su for information or keep Lama Su locked up. I think that's certainly the end of Camino being at all its own government or under its own power. But it did feel like, yeah, wow, that's that. I expected those two blaster bolts to go off, so maybe that was having a little bit more of a sensitivity, or maybe we will see Lama Su again or Lama Su's corpse.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
effectively, it felt like the moment we've been waiting for as fans of like, what happened to Camino?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear. I even the clones being pulled out, which I put all caps of like the switch. Like this is like we're seeing it. We're seeing them move out of Camino, packing up all the guns and rifles and outfit. It just everything about it just like wasn't this dramatic. Everyone's going around setting fire to Camino. It's just like they're moving out, and this ominous nature, which was almost so businesslike. You know, just like no, we're not getting new clients. We're now let's say we're done. And to see and so just I kind of liked it, and it had it has ramifications, and I would love to hear a little bit more, and maybe we go back and we see and get some answers. But it was tragically beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, and if we don't ever see Lama Su again, or if we get verbal confirmation that Lama Su was killed, I'll be happy with that moment because it was just so ominous, and it was so Rampart just being really, really cruel. Of the like, I have use for a scientist, I have no use for a politician, and,
Yeah,
and the
no,
door closing, like there's no wiggle room. That's it.
no. And the final look with Nalase and everything, yeah, it could tug on your heartstrings if you're open to it.
Yeah. So Nala Se, it appears, did not make it off Camino. What do you think happened to the young clones that she was trying to get off the planet?
Interesting question because what's Rampart's actual line in the beginning? Get like all feasible clones or
All
something.
viable clones, yeah.
Well, it's feasible that they're viable, I guess. Yes, that's the line. Viable. It made me think of the other clone 99s around, the defective ones and everything. They're done for, and yeah, the kids like the Empire. I mean, do they have the time to train them? Is it resources that they're willing to use? I don't know. Hate to think.
No, and
Hate to think it's a youngling part 2 here, but
I kind of felt like it was a real soft touch on a bad thing happened and we're not going to dwell on it.
Yeah.
Is the way it really felt to me, with kind of the darkness and the horror of the Empire of, yeah, they're moving on to this other program. They are making use of the valuable, viable adult clones. But these young ones, like that's the time and money to train them, and these clones have shown a lot of spirit and individuality, and that is not wanted in the Empire. So I can't imagine anything great happened with those young clones.
yeah, I agree.
Sad and upsetting, but there you go. So one other thing I wanted to ask you while we're talking about the great tragedy of Camino, because it kind of, for me, it's big on the plot mechanics. So Lama Su had put out the bounty to try to get Omega back in order to use her DNA to restart a better clone program to try to convince the Empire to keep buying their wares. Clearly, none of that worked. So do you feel like Lamasu's bounty is still active? Do you feel like that threat
Mhm.
to Omega is still active?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. You got a lot of characters still out there, some we've met, Fennec Shen and whatnot, that are still going to have, I think, an interest in what's going on, an interest in Omega. So I could, if Nala Say picks up the credit, so to speak, and is whispering in the shadows of an Imperial laboratory, I could still see it definitely being a factor.
Yeah,
Could
yeah,
could again lead to Boba Fett.
yeah, and it felt like Cad Bane kind of took his losing that bounty personally, so that he
Hmm.
might still just be on it to be like, I'm gonna capture her and then maybe have a rude awakening. It's like he doesn't have a client to return her to.
Yeah, indeed.
Was there anything in this episode that you disliked or questioned?
Other than that, it could have been 10 more minutes longer. I really love this one, and I love the consistency of the episodes, especially when you're watching at midnight and you're an old person waiting to go to bed. I'm happy with the length of the episodes and don't expect anything else. But yeah, as we get to the end here, you kind of want 5 more minutes. I had that thought just looking at that mountain when they're seeing the base and everything. This is a really fun episode and a lot of stuff going on. It was wonderfully written and directed, so nothing. They didn't leave anything off the table.
Yeah, I spent like the last 10 minutes going, come on, come on. I wish I could just watch the next episode.
Yeah.
But that's a compliment, not a criticism. Yeah, like I said at the top of this podcast, I do understand where some fans are coming from, that they're wanting Hunter and or the rest of the Bad Batch to be more proactive than reactive.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this for me is really you know, engage with the story that you're being presented with. That's not a like, oh, whoops, we the writers forgot to make Hunter proactive. That is the story. And
Yeah.
valid to say, oh, I don't like it because it doesn't feel like its foot is on the gas as a taste thing. But it is so clearly to me, as this season heads towards the end, this is about Hunter resisting the call of knowing what he wants to do, knowing who he kind of wants to be, but being concerned about it and feeling like it's too dangerous, and not knowing how to reconcile taking care of the people around him with suddenly becoming this different idea of a soldier that is this,
Right.
just virtuous hero who goes around the galaxy helping everyone else regardless of the risk to his family.
Yeah, and I look with the story of Hunter. I think once you get to some next big chapters and next big choices, or even at the end of his journey, I think this is going to be a type of a show that will reward you by going back and really studying the moments and the beats and the choices of Hunter. I think it will be fulfilling to go back and see the whole story again with him.
Yeah, because I think it is just like you could approach it from a comic perspective, but I think it really works dramatically. Like you can make a great smash cut video of Hunter going, "No, we're not going to do that."
Yeah,
Okay, I'm doing it
yeah, yeah.
because that's his journey. Do you have some hopes for the next episode?
Pedal to the no. Look, here's the thing. I think we got some big things coming. I'm not expecting it all to be a big old fight shootout, and we know the larger rebel alliance isn't coming because they're not there yet. I don't even know. I think Rex could factor into it, totally could, but I'm not even expecting that. I'm excited. I want to know what Rex was dealing with, who was around him. Was he having a nice dinner with Ahsoka and Bale when all that stuff happened? I don't know. I don't necessarily. I'm not waiting, and I don't even know if I want Rex to come back in. I do love the use of Rex. But I think we're going to get this. I think we're going to have some quiet moments. I think we're going to have some psychological thriller action with Crosshair and Hunter. And my dinner with Crosshair type of middle act of the story in next week's episode.
Yeah, I kind of can picture next week's episode being exactly what you're talking about. My dinner with Crosshair, of this real philosophical character conflict between Hunter
Mhm.
and Crosshair, and really getting down to Hunter saying like you're not making your own choices,
Yeah.
and Crosshair saying like, no, I'm being a soldier. You're just flailing around like
Mhm.
a sad mercenary. So that being one part of it, and then the other part of it, I think is a good possibility of Omega and the Bad Batch recruiting their friends,
Mhm.
and those friends could be a really interesting list, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Everyone from Rex to is Sid going to get out there in the field? This I'm spacing on the character's name right now, but the Deveronian from the last episode, is that
Oh, well,
somebody that
yeah. Owen Durant.
they've built? Yeah, Durant they've built a bond with. Is this reaching out to cut? Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of options of people that they have come across and they've helped. that Omega would maybe want to go back to and go like, you owe Hunter, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, Cut LaCoin's a good one. By the way, this morning I was trying to think of Cut's name, and I know him very well as a character, and I just kept saying Suit, right? His name's Suit. No, wait, his wife's Sue. So many
It's the
characters.
super couple name,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's right. The friends we made along the way type of ending could work for me. And just draw comparisons to Mandalorian. Yeah, and I don't care. We've got some good characters that we've met along the way here, and if they factor in, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, Saw. I mean,
Yep.
there are a lot of people that they have now met.
Mm.
Trace and Rafa. Trace and Rafa, I think most likely they go to Rex, right? And Rex
Yeah.
says, here are the resources I have. How would you feel if Ahsoka showed up?
I'd be fine. I'd be totally fine. I would be fine. I don't. I'm always going to trust. Filoni created this, and he's not necessarily. Who knows how day-to-day operations was? It's Jennifer Corbett's show, Brad Routh's show, but I trust Dave Filoni. If Ahsoka's used, he's so protective. It's going to be used well. The character is my thoughts on it. So I'm open to it, but I don't necessarily want it.
Yeah, I wonder if it would be. I'm gonna just agree with you. I any anxieties I have, I go, but they'll handle it well because it's Ahsoka.
Yes. Yeah.
Including not even about like handling Ahsoka well, but I think including that, I don't think they will let it become the Ahsoka show. I know some people feel that way about her episode in Mandalorian. I feel like there's great Ahsoka stuff, but I felt like the Mandalorian and Grogu's journey was absolutely front and center in that. And I don't think she's just going to show up and it's going to become the Ahsoka show. I think it'll still be about Hunter and the Bad Batch.
Yep.
There's that line from Crosshair. I was hoping for the whole squad, but you'll do. How did you take that? Did you take that just as like Crosshair has had this kind of wooden pick in his teeth, literally, but sticking in his craw of like they injured him. He's got a scar. They're traitors in his mind that he wants just for his own sort of like personal validation that he wants to get them all. Or is there something more practical to what he's saying when he says, but you'll do?
I actually think practical. I think what the first description you got, it makes a lot of sense. And I think you'll get that, right? I think, I think you get some of that kind of like dance. Like I keep saying my dinner with Crosshair just because I love making my dinner with Andre references and have for 20 years of my comedy career. But I also took a little bit of great. Let's get those chips back in. kind of thought, whether it's specifically that or not, of just like we got some good resources, or he just wants to torture them slowly like a Bond villain. Maybe that could work.
Yeah, no, I think that is very, very possible. And maybe that it could be the plot as well of Crosshair using Hunter as bait to get the rest of the squad. I'm very, very curious about that. I got one other question for you about future episodes. So early in the episode, Crosshair and Rampart are talking about an operation. And in that discussion is when they're saying like, we're gathering all the viable clones. We're taking care of Kamino. Did you have a sense that the operation that Crosshair and Rampart are talking about is just getting off of Kamino and shutting it down? Or did you feel like there is kind of a larger plan that they're talking about with that operation that they're using those viable clones for?
Good question. You stumped me, but I still think they are gonna burn the offices down at Kamino. So somehow that has something to do with it. But to take the clones with Rampart, see, I don't trust Rampart just to be like, we need some resources. Let's load them up and go send them out into the world. I think they have to be careful. I think they're wary of, especially if clones like Gregor are deserting. That's why they need the blind loyalty of the new troops coming in, and so that they're going to find a way to use them in a very special way. And I'm trying to think of like, I don't know if we want to put them on the front lines and waste them, so to speak, because they don't really believe they're going to be at war. So maybe hunting down Republic holdouts, Jedi, even possibly. I know the Inquisitor's coming. That's a different program, but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I could see some kind of use there.
Yeah. I think there's a little bit of ambiguity there for me, and it could just be like the operation to leave Kamino and to track down the Bad Batch and eliminate them, and maybe hold on to Omega if they think that she has value. I mean, the way he said to Nala say, like, I have need of her scientist, and Omega, she's an interesting sample. We'll keep her. It could just be as simple as that. but I also just was intrigued by, like, is there kind of like a bigger plan, maybe even something that would bring some of our young rebels together to stop something that they're trying to do.
Like that.
So very intrigued. Last thing for me, Hondo Watch continues for 2 more episodes.
You're holding out hope?
I'm holding out for Hondo.
I like that.
Not the 80s song Holding Out for a Hero,
Yeah.
holding out for a Hondo.
Well done. Well done. I would love it. I do want to see Hondo again. Hondo, yeah. There should be a whole documentary on Hondo. Yeah, you still got time. Maybe it ends the season. Maybe they break out Hunter, or they can't break out Hunter, and then Sid's like, well, there's one person I think that can help us, and then there's a knock on the door. You rang?
I was just gonna say that. I can absolutely see them barging into Sid's office and saying, "You have to help us." And he's like, "Sorry, I can't." Who are you on the phone with? Hondo.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we have not talked about that you wanted to touch on?
I don't know if you heard this. This show's beautiful, and the music's great.
Gorgeous. The music's great. The visuals are amazing, and I love my wife. These things are all true.
All
And I
true.
can say them all the time.
Every day.
Excellent. We always like to wrap up with a fun question about toys. Ken, if you could have a figure or toy inspired by this episode or a character in it, what do you want?
Look, if this is truly the end of Lama Su, this is a big character in Star Wars lore. It really is to me. Give me a commemorative 6-inch Black Series Lama Su Bad Batch version.
I like that. That's going to be a tall action figure. That's going to defy 6 inches for sure.
Yeah, there's about a 9-incher. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, 9-inch, a nice 9-inch Black Series Lama Su. I kind of feel like with this new proto stormtrooper, man, that's a whole line, right? We're gonna have Black Series of that. We'll have vintage. We'll have Funko Pop. We'll have bed sheets with proto stormtrooper. It'll be everywhere.
Proto Troop.
Proto Troop sounds like something that you take to just even out your digestive system, doesn't it?
I need one right now.
I need to take some Proto Troop. My other idea, and I think I might have said this recently, but I saw it again. I want a gonky game table, like maybe like those sit down arcade games at the pizza places where you could play Mrs. Pac-Man.
Yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, 2-sided. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to sit down just like Wrecker and Omega, and I want to play on gonky.
Yeah, I'm there for that. Oh man, if they could add that to Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, big line to play on gonky.
Yeah.
And then they can have somebody dressed as Omega who just beats everybody.
That'd be great.
What did you do when you went to Disneyland? Well, I was defeated by Omega. It was great. Anyway, a ton of great options for this episode. Any final thoughts on War-Mantle before we wrap up?
This is a classic. I'll tell you, it's an instant classic. I think this would be fun to rewatch, revisit, and rediscuss over the years.
Absolutely. Just a great movement forward in the story, and great literal and emotional nightmare of the power of the Empire and the heroism of the clones. Super cool, super important. So that is our look at episode 14, War-Mantle. Ken, do you want to let people know where they can find us?
I would love to. We always seem to get a lot of new ears on the Bad Batch episode reviews. So welcome. We are Force Center. We are on Twitter at Force Center Pod, Instagram and YouTube as well. You can like our Facebook page at Force Center Podcast. You can get an audio book on us by going to audibletrial.com/Force Center. You get merch at tpublic.com/user/Force Center. Some people this week picking up the Speculate Responsibly t-shirt. I saw that. You can find us a lot of spots, including Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, all the places you can find podcasts. And don't forget, you can support us directly if you so choose by going to patreon.com/Force Center. If you want to follow me, you can go to Ken Napzok or my website, kennapzok.com. As of right now, I still have a live comedy show in LA on August 31st at the Ha Ha Cafe. Late night show on a Tuesday night. Well, we'll see. But right now, it's still going. You can get information on my website. Joseph, where can they go for your wonderful work?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is at Joseph Scrimshaw. I'm still having a ton of fun on TikTok and then sharing on the other social media, just some adventures with action figures. And I look forward to eventually getting some good Bad Batch action figures to share and not open right there on TikTok. You can also find all of my other comedy adventures, comedy albums, and shows I've worked on, my other podcast, Obsessed, all that on my website at josephscrimshaw.com. But for now, for myself, for Ken, for Gonky and Lula, this has been the Bad Batch Report.